Hey guys, Matt Static. Now, Metallic Gear is a series full of peaks and dips, and a lot of different people feel a lot of different ways about each of them. But I think most people can agree that there are two games in the series that are a cut above the rest. They do the least wrong, the most right, and are the closest these games have come to perfection. Ladies and gentlemen, the Metal Gear Acid duology. Sons of Liberty is still an important game for a lot of reasons. Tight stealth gameplay that is still one of the gold standards for the genre, a graphical and financial powerhouse for the PlayStation 2nd, this mind-bending plot that's probably more relevant today than it was back in the day, and one of the most important case studies in the ongoing discussion of why gamers are idiots that should not be listened to sometimes. As for me, this was my first Metal Gear game, but it's a game that I appreciate much more now than I did back then. Because what if I told you that there was a time where I could dead-faced, completely seriously, tell you that Sons of Liberty was my least favorite in the franchise. Behind Guns of the Patriots, behind Phantom Pain, behind Metal Gear Solid. Okay, that's taking it too far. Which is weird, right? Because the first game I play in the franchise usually and unfairly becomes my favorite. And I have a lot of core memories with this game, more than with any of the others actually. Which just might be why I stayed away for so long. Something about the way this game looks has always stuck with me. It's definitely a step up from serious Minecraft, and a step up from most 6th gen games in general, specifically with the art direction. There is something really interesting and really creepy about how much expression and personality is in these washed out 3D models. By themselves, they look kind of like stretch toys. I feel like if I squeezed one of them, their heads would start to inflate, but then there's just so much supporting detail to it all. There are a bunch of little eccentricities on our characters, models, and gear. A lot of focus on ass cheeks specifically. Being able to see characters' physical reactions adds a lot of depth to the codec calls.
What do you think you're doing, Snake?
Not always for the best. Probably my favorite detail is how conditions like rain, heat, and smoke will coat themselves over the environment. It's just a very interesting game to look at, and it's just as interesting to play. I can't quite remember, but it was either this or Halo Reach that was my first M-rated game. So it was really a surprise just how detailed the violence was. Even if I did play Halo first, this was definitely the first game I ever played that let you kill people. Like, human people. And not just kill them, you could choke the shit out of people, send them hurtling towards hell, blow them up, or just shoot them repeatedly and watch them get crippled. Blood would stain the walls and floor everywhere. If you kill people with a sword, blood would spray out like a mist. And afterwards, you could just drag the corpse wherever you needed it to go. It was pretty shocking at the time for me, but at the same time, like, whoa. The game's got an ability to invoke this morbid curiosity within your own abilities, the AI, details in the environment, its story and characters, even so far as the hidden secrets and Easter eggs. I've only beat Sons of Liberty 3 times at this point. Once as a dumb little stupid baby, way later on as a teen, and then once more for this video. That being said, I played through the tanker portion of this game more times than I can count. It is the perfect play area for exploring these mechanics and complementing that curiosity. If this counts as a tutorial, then it's probably the best one I've ever played. I know this level like the back of my hand, and I loved it as a kid. The rest of the game is what I struggle to connect with. I have spent many a minutes trying to discover what caused this strange phenomenon in my mind, and I've come to some conclusions, starting with that landmark case I was talking about. The 2001 trial of Metal Gear gamers versus Konami and Kojima. There was mass outrage. Gamers were upset, distressed, depressed, literally undressed, as they did not get to play as their legendary hero, Solid McSnake, but were forced into the boots of the new guy, Blondie McBitchboy. Over time though, people would come to accept this bold approach and new character, that in turn was a pretty invaluable addition to the narrative and experience, even becoming one of the most intriguing, complex, and developed people in the entire storyline. But I am ashamed to say that, as a 9-year-old, I was on the wrong side of history. 10 years after the fact. I didn't even specifically dislike Raiden, but I was there for a very specific reason, to play as the Box Bazooka Brawl guy, and that Raiden was not. Just design-wise, he doesn't even look healthy, let alone cool. Like, why can I see his ribcage? That looks painful. And for what? I'm not trying to see all that! Or this! Not to mention, he whined. Like a lot. He was within reason to do so, but still. Snake didn't whine like that. For a while, it's his only character trait, the only thing distinct about him. For a while, we don't really know anything else about him. Like, who the fuck is this guy? There were things I did like about his character back then. Like, he could do some cool flips. He got a sword later on too, that was pretty cool. And in all honesty, I was really saying I didn't like Raiden just to be a part of the joke. I just really like Snake, and being Snake in the tanker section probably contributed to me playing that part as much as I did. There was not a lot of anything about this game that I directly disliked. That being said, I fucking hated Big Shell. This sprawling mass of hexagons loosely connected by bridges made progression feel confined and linear. The claustrophobic spaces within the hexagons added to a lack of agency I felt playing, like I was just going through a predetermined motion with no real control. The bright orange palette paired with this mostly taking place during daytime felt really weird and counterintuitive for a stealth game. Like compare badass super stealth man in a frigid futuristic militia base, or in an endlessly damp and dense freighter, the hostile untamed open wilds, or third world ruins in a war-torn future, versus Goldilocks on a brisk summer day going to Home Depot. On top of that, this game was just stressful as a kid. I had to go around the entire complex looking for bombs, which I don't think I knew I was supposed to be doing, because I remember this section taking forever. Not to mention a water and escort mission at the same time. Now, that's just evil game design. What's funny is that nothing I've mentioned so far is actually a bad thing. The linear structure of the Big Shell allows for a more focused and deliberate stealth experience, and just before you get used to that structure, the bombs and the escorting Emma throw you for a loop and keep you hectically moving forward. The water section probably lasts like 5 to 10 minutes combined, controls better than a lot of others, and I actually happen to really like Home Depot. Once I sat back and peeled through the excuses, I found the reason I actually hated Big Shell was because I was tremendously bad at this game. Linear, tight corridors, bright environments, and an overhead camera forces you to be more methodical and quick-witted with your strategy, which, as a 9-year-old, wasn't really my thing, compared to Snake Eater, which I played more than any of these games, or Phantom Pain, which is probably runner-up. These two host much more open environments with a freedom of approach that made my life so much easier back then. You could be a skilled player and earn more rewards for your efforts, or you could be boring and become grass. Both were valid, not here though. I think progression also played a big part in my difficult time. You'll visit most sections of the Big Shell around 2 or 3 times as you run back and forth between objectives. Go find this guy, go find that guy, go fight this guy, go find this girl, go find this item, go find some bombs, go find this other item, go find these bombs fast. I love this kind of backtracking nowadays, because not only does it build familiarity with these places, it also makes full use out of all of them. But let's go back to Snake Eater, or even the tanker portion of this game. Despite being more open-ended in how you approach progression itself is pretty straightforward. Go further into the jungle, or get to the top and then bottom of the ship. All of these games have confusing ass plots where I barely understood what was happening, but that was okay because I could still progress. I didn't need to fully understand what was happening or what I was even actually doing in the moment to get through it, which is something you need to know while playing through Big Shell. And do you see what I'm getting at here? Paying attention. Also wasn't really my thing back then. Of all the things in this game I neglected back then, the VR stuff was definitely the most overlooked. They got these mini missions that will take place in virtual training rooms to help you get to know how to play, and they're so fun, honestly. Games just don't do stuff like this anymore, and playing through them now kind of brought back that old curiosity I used to feel on the tanker, just messing around with the gameplay to see how I can deal with every new level. There's a bunch of really cool side content and extras that you won't play with anywhere else, which is kind of sad because most players will probably never get to experience this stuff, because these missions are tough as shit for no reason. I don't even blame myself for never dealing with this stuff until now, but I'm glad that I am now, because it's worth it. You can also cheat to unlock them, which I suggest you do because fuck those stupid ass Meryl Sniper missions. Alright, so I was a superficial child, not a very skilled child, not a very smart child, and also not a very brave one. The game's music is great at installing this pervasive suspense. It's smooth enough that it would be relaxing if it wasn't for the sinister undertone lurking about. It turns down the epicness from the last game's track and gives us a very different sense of drama. One where it's like you're never on top of things, there's always something you don't know. It's perfection for this game and its story. Sons of Liberty's narrative takes advantage of being a sequel in a way I've never really seen any other do. It throws around your understanding and expectations of what's going on until you're left with nothing, and then feeds that confusion into the point it's trying to make. I just need to explain it. The events taking place on Big Shell are specifically meant to build this self-aware deja vu. It's beat for beat Shadow Moses, just with a different pitch. The players are meant to see this, the characters in the story see this, but no one can really do anything about it. They just keep playing into the game as you push straight ahead from goal to goal. During this playthrough specifically, I couldn't help but feel a sense of stagnation. The plot itself moves along at an exciting and balanced pace, but for a while, it doesn't really feel like you're learning about or building up to anything. It's the opposite actually, just one twist on top of another. Raiden is trying to wring out answers and figure out what's going on, but all he can really do is complain because Snake, my bad Pliskin, doesn't really trust him. The Colonel is robotic on multiple levels, and moreover, again, who the fuck is this guy? Raiden's character feels straight out of a noir, a man desperately trying to solve a mystery while, for the audience, the man himself is the biggest mystery. A core memory of mine has always been this one emotional codec call between Raiden and Rose, where she breaks down about barely knowing the man she's been with for 2 years and recalls this one incident.
Do you remember that time I forced my way into your room? We'd known each other for almost a year, and you blew up. It was the first time you ever raised your hand against me. It wasn't your violent nature that scared me. It was your room, your heart.
Stop it.
There wasn't anything in your room. Only a bed and a small desk. It looked like a prison cell.
Rose?
No television set. No family pictures. Not even a poster.
Rose, I only used that room for sleeping.
That's when I realized it wasn't a lack of characterization on the writing front. It was that nothingness was his characterization. And something about that shook me. Shit, something about that still shakes me. The truth of our characters and their situation gets hazier and hazier until you enter the final act, by which point this confused fear completely takes over as any sense of what the fuck is going on is gone. Being confused is part of the course of these games, but there's always been something in these stories that I can latch onto, so I can technically claim I understood the plot. Snake's gotta stop Liquid before he launches a nuke. Snake's gotta tragically kill his mother-like mentor. Snake's gotta stop Ocelot before he dies of old age. Snake is fake and the story doesn't matter, so I don't need to pay attention. There was some sort of clarity. Not here. And it's completely haunting. Once the Colonel started turning into a skeleton and told me to turn off the PS2, I paused the game, walked out of my room, and did not come back until I could drag my dad with me to make sure I didn't die or something. The fourth wall break here, along with the confusion, fear, progression, characterization, they all feed into that final lecture from the AI. The triviality of our perception of truth, the choices we make based off those flawed perceptions, human individuality in general, and how the internet will end up controlling it. In a sense, when it comes to the S3 plan and the entire Big Shell incident itself, Raiden wasn't the only test subject, was he? Outside of the context of the narrative itself, who was the one really playing through these events under the guise of their own free will? What or who was the real game? The only thing I can say for certain now is that trying to question and comprehend reality wasn't really my thing back. I think Sons of Liberty is a game that no one's really ready for until they play it. At least I definitely wasn't. Going from cartoony family games with jumping plumbers and talking hedgehogs to a hyper-violent existential spy thriller had quite the effect as a 4th grader. As ill-equipped as I was, I'm actually kinda glad I experienced it when I did. They were scarring at the time, yeah, but the many headaches and nightmares this game gave me are invaluable memories to me now that I can fully appreciate. I'll admit that this video was more personal and about my experience than broad and overlooking the entire game, so I do want to make another video like this on this game, especially for the story, but somewhere later down the line when I'm a bit more confident in how I understand it. So like 2 or I don't know, 6 more playthroughs, something like that.